Have you ever witnessed loyalty so powerful that it defied fear, danger, and even death itself? This is the story of a dog whose devotion became a desperate cry for help. Not for himself, but for the one he loved most in this world, his little owner. It began on an ordinary day, but what unfolded would etch an unforgettable mark on everyone who saw it. The morning was quiet in the small town, the kind of quiet that comes after a fresh rain. Streets glistened, trees dripped lazily, and the world seemed to be waking slowly. Amid this calm, a boy named Ethan, just 7 years old, was playing outside his small cottage. His laughter echoed faintly, carrying across the empty road. By his side, as always, was Max, a golden retriever with warm, soulful eyes and a heart that seemed to understand every beat of Ethan's. Ethan had grown up with Max. To him, Max wasn't just a dog. It was his shadow, his protector, his best friend. They ate together, played together, and sometimes even fell asleep side by side on the old couch in their living room. But what no one knew was how deep Max's loyalty ran. How fiercely he watched over Ethan, even when no one else was around. That day, Ethan's parents were busy indoors. His mother was baking, and his father was fixing a leaky pipe in the kitchen. For just a few minutes, Ethan wandered further down the path that led toward the wooded edge of town, chasing a bright red ball that had rolled away. Max followed close, his ears perked, tail wagging in cautious rhythm. But then suddenly, everything changed. The ball bounced once, twice, and rolled down a small slope into a shallow ravine. Ethan, innocent and fearless, scrambled down after it, slipping slightly on the wet grass. Max barked, sensing danger, his paws skidding as he rushed forward, but it was too late. The ground beneath Ethan gave way, slick from the morning rain. He tumbled down with a cry, his small body crashing into the shallow stream below.
Oh.
The sound of his frightened scream sliced through the still air like glass shattering. Max's bark turned frantic. He dashed to the edge, looking down at Ethan, mud, covered, bruised, and stuck in a spot too steep for him to climb out. The water wasn't deep, but it was enough to soak Ethan, chilling him to the bone. He tried to climb, but every attempt ended with him slipping further down. "Mom, Dad." Ethan's voice rang out, trembling and scared. But they were too far to hear. Max didn't hesitate. He sprinted back toward the road, barking wildly. His sharp, desperate cries echoed off the houses. People passing by glanced at him, but dismissed it just another dog barking. Max ran in, circles darting toward anyone he saw, then bolting back toward the ravine, only to return and bark louder, as if begging, "Follow me, please." But no one understood. He ran to the bakery door, scratching frantically, barking so fiercely that even the baker stepped out. Max darted back toward the slope, then returned again, barking louder, whining desperately. Something in his behavior was different, urgent, almost human-like in its pleading. Finally, one woman paused, her brows knitting in concern. "What's wrong with him?" she murmured. Max barked again, spinning, dashing a few steps toward the woods, then back to her feet. His eyes were wild with fear, tail stiff, body trembling. It was as though he was shouting in a language no one could understand, but still, his desperation broke through. The woman hesitated only a second longer before following. Max bolted, glancing back repeatedly to ensure she was behind him. Within moments, she reached the edge of the ravine and froze. "Oh my God," she gasped. Ethan's small figure lay curled at the bottom, crying weakly. She called out for help, her voice shrill, and within moments others came running. A rope was fetched, and a man climbed carefully down the slick slope. Barked and paced, eyes locked on Ethan, his body tense as if ready to leap down himself. When the man finally reached Ethan and wrapped the rope around him, Max whined loudly, his paws pawing at the dirt anxiously. It felt like an eternity. But finally, Ethan was lifted out, shivering, muddy, but alive. As soon as his feet touched the ground, Max lunged forward, pressing himself against Ethan, licking his face frantically as if scolding him and comforting him all at once. Ethan clung to Max's neck, sobbing softly into his fur. But this was only the beginning. Because as they all walked back, none of them realized the danger wasn't over yet. Max's ears twitched. He looked back toward the ravine, hackles rising. Something wasn't right. Have you ever felt it? The eerie silence that comes right before something terrible happens? Max felt it. His instincts screamed louder than words ever could. Even as Ethan clung to him, trembling but safe, Max's gaze stayed locked on the ravine. His body stiffened, ears pricked forward, tail rigid. The people around them didn't notice. They were busy fussing over Ethan, drying him off, reassuring his terrified parents who had finally arrived. But Max knew. He growled low, a deep rumble from his chest, his sharp eyes scanning the shadows below. The woman who'd followed him noticed and frowned. "What's wrong with him now?" she murmured. But before anyone could answer, a sound rose from the ravine below, grinding noise, followed by a sudden, sharp crack. The earth shifted. A section of the slope collapsed inward, spilling rocks and mud. People gasped, stumbling back. And then, out from the dislodged brush at the base of the ravine, something moved. A wild dog, scraggly, mangy. Its eyes glowing with hunger and fears, scrambled into view, followed by another. Out sharply, their teeth bared. The collapse had disturbed their den. And now, driven by desperation and panic, they emerged snarling, hackles raised. The crowd froze. Ethan whimpered, clutching Max tighter. But Max's growl deepened, vibrating. Through his entire frame, he stepped forward, putting himself between Ethan and the threat, his muscles coiled like steel. "Get back!" someone shouted. But Max didn't move back. He advanced. The first wild dog lunged up the slope. Max barked so fiercely it seemed to shake the air, his body a wall of golden fur and sheer defiance. Ethan's parents tried to pull him back, but Ethan screamed, "No, Max." He could see it. Max wasn't backing down. The wild dog lunged again. In a heartbeat, Max met it head-on. Its powerful jaws snapped, teeth flashing. The two dogs collided in a whirlwind of fur and snarls, rolling dangerously close to the edge of the slope. Max was fighting not for himself, but for a thin every strike, every bite. Every desperate move screamed loyalty and love. Gasps rang out from the onlookers. Ethan sobbed, his small hands gripping his father's coat. "Help him!" Ethan cried. A man grabbed a long stick and moved forward cautiously, trying to ward off the second wild dog that was circling closer. Max, despite his size and strength, was outnumbered. His fur was streaked with mud, his sides heaving as he fought. His growls turned guttural. Primal heave was relentless. At last, with a final, bone-deep snarl, Max clamped down hard. Forcing the first wild dog backward, it yelped, and scrambled away, vanishing into the trees. The second hesitated, then followed, disappearing into the shadows from where they came. Max stood there, panting heavily, his fur matted, one ear torn slightly and bleeding. But his eyes, those fierce, loyal eyes, immediately turned back to Ethan. He limped forward, pressing himself against the boy as though to say, "It's over now. You're safe." Ethan buried his face in Max's neck, sobbing uncontrollably. The crowd, silent and awestruck, watched in disbelief. A man whispered, "I've never seen anything like that." But what no one realized was that Max wasn't done. Because even after Ethan was carried home, bundled in blankets, Max refused to rest. He sat by the door, ears alert, eyes fixed on the darkening woods outside. He sensed something still lurking, something no one else could feel. And that night, when everyone else slept, Max vanished. Have you ever loved someone so fiercely that you'd vanish into the night for them, Evan, if it meant never returning? That's exactly what Max did. While Ethan slept soundly, comforted by the thought that his loyal dog was lying beside his bed, Max was gone. Quiet as a shadow, he slipped out the door, paws pressing silently against the damp ground. Why did he leave? No one knew. But deep in his animal heart, Max understood something that humans could not. The danger wasn't over. The wild dogs had. Retreated? Yes. But Max had caught their scent. They were still out there, lurking in the dark, restless and desperate. His instincts screamed that they would return. If they did, Ethan could be in danger again. So Max followed their trail. The moonlight filtered through the trees as Max ran into the forest, his nose low to the ground. The scent was sharp fear. Hunger, anger, all woven together. His torn ear throbbed with every movement, but he didn't stop. He couldn't. Every step was a vow. Protect Ethan, no matter what hours passed. Back at the house, Ethan stirred awake. He reached out instinctively, his small hand searching for Max's warm fur. But all he found was emptiness. Panic struck him instantly. "Mom!" Ethan cried, scrambling out of bed. His mother rushed in, alarmed, followed by his father. "What's wrong?" she asked, kneeling beside him. "Max, he's gone." Ethan's voice cracked with fear. They searched every corner of the house, calling his name, but Max was nowhere to be found. Outside, the night was silent, except for the distant whisper of the wind through the trees. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Max found what he was looking for. The pack of wild dogs, 5 of them, now huddled near a hollowed-out log, snarling among themselves. Their ribs were sharp against their fur, their eyes glowing in the pale moonlight. Max stood tall at the edge of the clearing, his breath misting. In the cold air, one by one, their heads turned toward him. A lesser dog might have fled, but not Max. He stepped forward, his stance low, teeth bared in warning. A growl rumbled deep in his chest, cutting through the stillness like a drumbeat. The pack responded in kind. The first lunged. Max dodged, his jaws snapping lightning fast. They collided with terrifying force. Flew. Snarls and yelps shattered the quiet night. It wasn't just a fight, it was war. Max was outnumbered, but he didn't care. Each bite, each strike, was fueled by something far greater than fear. Love. He wasn't fighting for himself. He was fighting for Ethan. Back in town, Ethan's father grabbed his coat. "I'm going out to look for him," he said, determination in his voice. "I'm coming too," Ethan pleaded, his eyes wet with tears. "No, son," his mother said, firmly holding him back. "It's too dangerous." But Ethan broke free, dashing toward the door. "He needs me. Max needs me." Those words cut through his parents' hesitation. Moments later, flashlights lit up the night as they followed Ethan into the woods. Meanwhile, Max was on his last legs. He'd forced 2 of the wild dogs to flee, tails tucked, but 3 remained. One darted at his side, biting deep, but twisted and struck back with ferocious power, clamping down until the dog released. His fur was matted with blood and mud, his breath ragged, but still he stood. Then a sound. "Max." Ethan's voice rang through the trees. Max's ears perked instantly. That one sound, it was like strength flooding back into his weary body. He barked fiercely, his voice echoing through the woods, guiding Ethan to him. Ethan's flashlight beam cut through the darkness just as Max lunged at the last dog, knocking it down in a burst of sheer determination. When Ethan saw him, bloody, trembling, but victorious, his heart shattered and swelled all at once. "Max." Ethan ran forward, but his father held him back, stepping ahead to make sure it was safe. Max turned to them, tail wagging weakly, and limped forward. His body screamed exhaustion, but his eyes were bright, alive, fixed only on Ethan. He had one. Have you ever witnessed love so pure that it hurts because you know it came at a price? As Ethan saw Max limping toward him, his small body trembling, fur streaked with blood and mud, he felt a pain he couldn't describe. "Max." Voice cracked as tears streamed down his cheeks. He broke free from his father's hold and ran straight into Max's arms. The dog collapsed against him, pressing his head into Ethan's chest, his tail wagging faintly despite his wounds. Ethan hugged him tightly, sobbing uncontrollably. "You're okay. You're okay," he whispered over and over, though even at 7 years old he could see Max wasn't okay. His father knelt beside them, his voice urgent. "We need to get him to a vet now." They rushed back through the forest, Ethan's father carrying Max in his arms, while Ethan held his dog's paw the entire way. Max's breathing was shallow, but he kept his eyes on Ethan, never once looking away, as if needing to reassure himself that his boy was safe. At the veterinary clinic, everything became a blur. Bright lights, the smell of antiseptic, voices, calling out instructions. Ethan sat in the waiting room, clutching Max's red collar in his hands, rocking back and forth. His mother knelt beside him, trying to soothe him, but Ethan wouldn't stop crying. Hours passed. Then finally, the vet emerged. His expression was serious, but soft. "He's a fighter," the vet said gently. "He's lost a lot of blood. And he's exhausted, but he's stable. With time and care, he'll recover." Ethan leaped forward, hugging his mother so tightly it almost hurt. His father let out a breath he didn't even know he was holding when Ethan was finally allowed. In to see Max, he ran to his side. Max was lying on a padded bed, hooked up to fluids, his fur shaved in patches where his wounds had been cleaned. But when he saw Ethan, his tail thumped weakly against the bed. "Hey, boy," Ethan whispered, kneeling beside him. His small fingers stroked Max's head gently. "You saved me. You always save me." Max let out a low, contented whine and pressed his nose into Ethan's palm. In that moment, the room disappeared. It was just them boy and dog, hearts beating and sync-bound by a love that words could never fully describe. Over the following weeks, Max's recovery became the talk of the town. Everyone who had seen his bravery couldn't stop telling the story, the dog who fought off a pack of wild dogs to protect his little owner. Strangers came to visit, bringing treats, toys, even donations to help with his medical care. But Max didn't care about any of that. His eyes only followed Ethan one evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the world in hues of gold. Ethan sat on the porch steps with Max's head in his lap. He traced his fingers gently over Max's healed scars. His voice soft. "Promise me you'll never leave me again," Ethan whispered. Max licked his hand, his tail wagging softly, as if making that very promise. And though he couldn't speak, Ethan understood, because that's what loyalty looks like. It's not grand or loud. It's quiet, fierce, unyielding. It's a dog who vanishes into the night to protect the one he loves. It's a battered body standing between danger and the person it would die for. As the stars appeared above, Ethan rested his head against Max's. "You're my hero," he murmured. Max closed his eyes, breathing in the scent of the boy he'd risked everything for. To him, there was no greater reward. And in that quiet moment, under the starlit sky, the boy and his dog shared a bond so powerful it would echo for the rest of their lives, a bond born of love, tested by danger and proven unbreakable. Because sometimes heroes don't wear capes. They have 4 paws, a wagging tail, and a heart big enough to save the world of the one they love most.